Hi, Kristin.
Hey, Shereen.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good.
So we'll just jump right in today. I think a lot of people know who we are already, and we can have information down below
Mhm.
in the description. But we wanted to talk about painting a picture of what it would look like if we had healthy habits right now, starting now.
Mhm.
Um, so, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Do you want to start?
Yeah. I think it's an important strategy because we need a compelling picture to pull us forward. To help us really step into our new life and actually take action on our goals. Because here we are. What is it? January? I don't even know. Mid-January, and
18?
most people have blown their New Year's resolutions, particularly those related to their health. So I think it's an important topic because we get really excited about the possibility of change, and then we kind of let regular life happen, and then we slip. So it's a really opportune time to create a positive picture of what that could look like. So I'm happy to talk about it.
Okay. So, how long have you been having a pretty healthy lifestyle?
Well, health and wellness has been important to me since I was younger, and in part because I really wanted to understand the challenges. I grew up in the Midwest, and it's well, I mean, I wouldn't like you can't categorize a geographic region completely, but particularly in the winter months, it's just hard for people to stay on a diet, find a way to exercise, feel happy and uplifted with the cold weather. And so I was finding myself during that part of the year, slipping and sliding and not feeling particularly healthy. So I've always been interested in what makes us and keeps us well. Watching people around you get sick and enter the medical system and get worse or get better temporarily, but not do anything to really help and support themselves. So how long have you? I mean, what's been your connection to getting healthy and well? Why is it important to you?
Um, well, I remember being a teenager and reading 17 magazine, and they had all these things about, your body's, at that time it said your body's 70% water, so you need to drink this much water a day. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. So I started doing that when I was a teenager, and little things I just keep reading about what health things were. So it was just out of a magazine.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother was pretty healthy. She made pretty healthy foods. So I knew it was a thing, but I was a real junk food eater, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
really addicted to sugar. Um, so it's like I had this balance, really like swinging pendulum kind of thing of really being healthy and then really doing unhealthy things with my body in terms of what I put inside it. But I was an
Mm-hmm.
athlete, and so I wanted to perform optimally.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to look good. I wanted to feel good. I wanted to be strong and fast and all that. But that always interested me just as a teenager. And then my family wasn't so much into it, but I was. And then when I got cancer when I was 22, then I really had to start coming inside my body and really thinking about how does the body work and learning it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, painting a picture of, going above and beyond this world's reality and saying, okay, well, how do I want to look and feel when I'm 100 years old?
Mm-hmm.
Just start a whole new vision, because I'm definitely not the kind of person who follows what all the sheep are doing.
Right.
I definitely want to choose my health and my well-being and what I can and can't do as I stay alive longer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and speaking of going to 100, we can take some tips from the people in these blue zones, those longevity zones, where a higher percentage of their population live to be 100 years old. And there's a lot of suggestions. I mean, that's not direct cause and effect, but there are some themes in those regions of what people do to live to be 100. And a lot of it has to do with just a healthy attitude and an engagement with life. that being connected to something that feels bigger than them, we call it God or source, being connected to family and community, moving all the time. And for most of those communities, it doesn't look like, a Pilates or a soul cycle class. It's just moving about their day and engaging it as part of their work, leaning towards eating more plants than meat. A lot of the cultures enjoy a glass of wine, and part of their, that's part of their socializing, the relaxation. And there's some other things. So it's not that we have to do anything incredibly radical. It just is, like you described, just a mindset and an attitude of wanting to extend our health span as we, extend our lifespan as well. So I get excited about that. If it's possible for, a group of people or some people, then it's possible for all of us. And we all will do it in our unique way.
Right.
But there are some themes of what's helpful in order to live a longer, healthier life. So it's a fun picture for me, like you, thinking of being healthy at 100, not living to 100 just for the sake of it, but literally feeling like you're vital and engaged.
And still having as much fun as we're having now, and even more because we're so much wiser. Because I'm definitely having more fun in my life now than I was in my 20s. I was having fun, but I was clueless. So it's like when I'm 100, I'm going to have so much of my shit together that I'm really going to be having fun. So I want my body coming with me. Right. I want to be like, okay, now everything's really good, except, the things I did in the past made everything crumble. And now I'm just kind of dealing with getting over obstacles all the time, along with having way more fun than I ever imagined I could.
Right.
So it's like, so what would that look like? So for me, it would look like a lot of traveling, living the way I want to live in the kind of environment and peace and beauty that I choose to live in, which I already do, but, even more so, always expanding, and really having a lot of energy to keep doing more projects, more things, creating more films or writing or, connecting with people, whatever it is. It's like, I don't know what that's going to be at that point because I just keep changing. But I definitely want to have the stamina and the endurance and the vitality and happy energy and waking up excited about all the things I'm going to do that day. Not, well, I don't want to talk about what I don't want to be because we can see lots of examples of what we don't want to be.
Right.
And, imagining into a future that no one really talks about, like, what does that look like?
Yeah.
So what does it look like for you?
Well, I love your images, and it does remind me that one of the other things is having a why, having a purpose, having a reason to jump out of bed in the morning, pulling life force through you enhances your health span and your lifespan. So yes, me too. Ditto on the travel. Definitely want to see more of the world and be exposed to that variety. Always wanting to learn. That makes me jump out of bed. I could be a perpetual student if allowed. Helping others, being able to take that wisdom we've gleaned being on the planet for decades and share that and be an uplifter and just find ways to give back and contribute would be a great vision for me. And like you said, I know how I want to feel. I don't have all the details filled in, and that makes it kind of fun and exciting. But I do know that I want to be around. And I think the one specific is if my children have children, and I'd like to be around, to be with my grandchildren for certain. So that's a specific that I can picture that makes me really smile. And again, I don't know what they're going to choose to do, but if I had my way, I'd encourage them.
Like you have any say so.
If I have any say so, right. But, you also bring up an important point about being able to imagine it, because the collective meme, to use a term, is that we decline as we age, that it's it's tough getting older, that you're discarded, not relevant to society, that you're not a part of the world really, or relevant anymore. And especially if you're sick and old, you're institutionalized, and it's very kind of awful. And I'm sorry to bring up the negative, but that's sort of this collective buy-in that we have. And so to shift that and try to imagine something different takes some intention.
Yeah, because it is the choice that most people make consciously or unconsciously. Right now, that's the norm.
Right. Yeah, it's a powerful norm. And whether, you're right, whether we're aware of it or not, we're buying into it to a degree. Because, the new belief that I have is that aging is a disease and decline is optional. And yeah, so set your sights high. I hear the story in one of the blue zones, might have been in the island off Costa Rica, where a 100-year-old, easily shimmies up the coconut tree to get the coconuts. And I'm thinking, yeah, no one ever told them they couldn't, and they enjoy doing it, so they keep doing it. So why not?
Right. And it's the habits that we create now that make that possible.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have to make a big change. Like when a rocket goes up into space, you just change that trajectory by 1 degree down here.
Mm-hmm.
And as time goes on, it gets wider and wider. And then we end up over here instead of over here.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take much. It isn't like today by January 31st, I need to only eat vegetables and organic and green things nonstop. And then, when I'm 100, I'm going to feel fantastic.
Right. It seems, true.
But you just go little by little.
Right. If you throw in all the health suggestions that are out there, it'd be completely overwhelming and daunting.
And you'd be insane, because it's not really possible. We're human beings. We're not robots.
It's true. And that's why I like to look at the longevity zones. I don't know that they scour the internet for the latest supplement to increase telomere length, but they just, have the right attitude and manage their stress, or stress resilient, so that they're not shortening telomeres.
So tell me about the blue zone. I don't know anything about that.
Well, the blue zones are places that were studied by this guy, I'm blanking on his name, Butner, I believe is his name. He did a study he was an author or a writer for National Geographic, and he went around the world and looked for the places that had the highest percentage of centenarians, people that lived to be 100. And so he found, I think, 5 regions. Was a place near Costa Rica, Okinawa, Japan, Costa Mesa, where the Adventists live.
Wait, Costa Mesa, not Costa Mesa, California?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Sardinia, Italy, and oh my gosh, I'm blanking. But anyway, you can look it up, and there's many, and he studied, and he went and looked at themes, behavioral themes, what were in common in these areas. And those are some of the things I talked about. Where they're naturally active, where they're definitely engaged with family and community, where they have a purpose, where they lean towards eating more plants, where they have wine at 5.
What time is it?
Except the Adventists. The Adventists don't, but they're this exception. They feel connected to something that's bigger than them, a source, God, that kind of thing. So those are some of the themes that they found. And of course, there's a lot of nuance. And then they've tried to extrapolate that to cities, even in the United States, that want to be blue zone cities. And they're finding that, the environment has to be set up. It's less about, it's both. It's about individuals making choices, but it's also creating an environment that supports more movement, more walking safely or biking, more access to fresh vegetables, more, so there's a lot of things that entire communities are doing to increase longevity or become a blue zone. So it's and it's inspiring, because again, these cultures are not necessarily doing anything that they haven't done for decades or centuries. They're living life, and they live it in a really engaged and vital way. Like,
are the Quakers like that too?
They're not included in this this category, the Adventists, the ones in Costa Mesa, and it's more geographical and then a population within that geography, but
Okay.
it's attributed in Costa Mesa to the Adventists, as they live a pretty wholesome lifestyle.
They don't eat any cookies, really? No cookies? I find that hard to believe.
When they eat the cookie, they eat it with such relish and joy and not guilt.
It turns into pure light and love and healing for all their cells.
And it's
I
so
get
satisfying they don't eat the whole bag.
it. Oh, that's an option.
Yeah. I mean, in our next conversation, I think it would be good to explore some of the things that hang us, because there are some legitimate reasons why it's difficult to change, and why it's difficult to overcome some of the habits that become ingrained. I mean, fortunately, probably most of those people in those zones grew up that way, and so they're not having to overcome, they're not deciding at a certain point, oh, I want to live longer, so now I got to do these things differently, which is probably most of us in this country anyway, or in the West.
And that's why painting a picture for ourselves individually for what we're gonna, how we're gonna live, how we're gonna be, how we're gonna think, how we take care of our bodies is how we take care of our minds. And the whole mind thing is becoming more and more of a topic, because you mess up your cells and you drink too much and you do too much drugs and eat too much sugar, you're messing with your brain, because your brain isn't gonna, you can heal it. You can heal anything. You can make anything do whatever you want it to do with a lot of focus. But when you can't remember things and you, I can't remember what I was going to say. No, I'm kidding.
When you can't remember things.
I can't. Why were we on this call? When you can't remember things, or your brain isn't functioning the way it normally does, where you're like, wait a minute, last year I had a lot of focus and energy, and what I was doing, I was really driving towards, and I didn't get distracted so easily, which, I think the internet helps with that a lot. There's a book called The Shallows, about what the internet does to your mind, which is we just got it, so we're starting to read that. But so doing things that keep your brain, because when I went through cancer, when I went through chemotherapy and radiation, some of the drugs really messed with my brain, really messed with my mind. And I realized that year of chemotherapy that my mind is all I have. So I have to take good care of it, because if I don't take care of my mind, my life just follows where my thoughts go. And first of all, I have to be very deliberate and conscious about my thoughts. And I can't mess with the physicality of my mind or put harmful drugs in or toxins. And not that it didn't stop me from doing whatever I wanted to do, but knowing that is the guide of your life, that's going to determine a lot of what's possible for you as each decade goes on. What your mind is doing, what you're choosing to do, what energy you have, what your thoughts are, what you see as possible, and then you take action towards that. So
it's harder to turn it around once you've gone in a particular direction for a long time, but it's possible. And that's the good news we've been talking about before, that the brain is flexible, it's malleable, it's plastic, it's able to heal itself in ways that we didn't know before. So I'm hopeful for everyone, but we're all at different starting places. And, if you can start to cultivate positive attitudes and, sync up, and this is another whole, hour conversation at least, the sync up the emotions, that generate signals and relationship, from the heart brain to the head brain. You can start to live more in synchrony in that regard. Then our choices come from a better place. When we are emotionally balanced, so to speak, or more in a positive space, we're going to make better choices than when we're feeling stressed and overwhelmed and in a negative place. And yes, and chemicals can influence that on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, there's a lot of specifics you can do to maintain brain health in terms of supplementation and diet and exercises, mental exercises, etc. And then, below that is really managing your stress, being in the most optimal physiological state, so that you support your brain function. This is a huge, huge field, changing. I mean, now I'm exploring the application of stem cells, to brain health. So there's
Mm-hmm.
just, it's big, but, to simplify it for people, it's a practice where we're really checking ourselves. What is our general attitude? How are we feeling? And how is it influencing our thoughts, therefore our decisions, therefore our behaviors, therefore our perception, therefore our feelings, therefore our thoughts, therefore, it becomes this
Our
loop.
actions. Yeah.
And then it becomes who we are. And that, again, is changeable, but it takes almost heroic intention.
It does.
To do
It takes very focused, deliberate, conscious choice. And like you were asking me, what was my why?
Mm-hmm.
Why you're doing it is really important, because I remember when I started getting healthy and being very conscious and deliberate about my choices of my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of the things I knew is that people who run at that time, this was a concept, was when you're running, if you're not running for the joy of it, you're running so that you don't die because your parents died of this or that,
Mm-hmm.
and you're running in fear, you probably will die of one of those things, because you are now actually reinforcing the thing you're afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
If you're running because you love running and you're ecstatic and you're not thinking about, I'm doing this in reaction to something negative, then your body is just reinforcing that health in every way, in all the cells and all the energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, all of our choices can come from, and sometimes with exercise, it's hard to get going. It doesn't feel like the thing that's going to bring us joy. But it can. And then we find the ways to move that bring us more joy, whether that's dancing or cycling or running or swimming, yoga,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And you do. And sometimes you do have to nudge yourself, because inertia is often difficult to overcome. And you kind of have to talk yourself into it sometimes, because we tend to be more sedentary. And so sometimes you have to talk yourself into the benefits of all of this. But once you get going, you're creating a momentum. And that's the whole idea, is you're creating a momentum where you wouldn't think of going a day without exercise, or you wouldn't, you would, then it would go against who you were at that point. So yeah, I definitely have to nudge myself on a regular basis, because we get lazy. And there's a lot of support for negative health habits. So we have to be the exception. Like you said, you connect to your why in the deepest way and make yourself a priority and believe that it's possible. And say, why not? Why not? Why not live longer and healthier? Why not?
What would it look like?
What would it look like?
And I think a lot of people have a fear that, I don't want to live past all the people I love. Like if I'm 100 and everyone else believes they were going to die in their 70s or 80s, and then I'm alone. It's like, how many people are on the planet, and how many friends do you have? And you're going to attract the group of people who feel and think the way you do, in that vibration and that frequency. And you're going to be surrounded by people who are 100 and thriving and alive and excited and having fun and bicycling and traveling and swimming and dancing and, discovering new music and whatever it is. Plus whatever else exists in this universe that doesn't exist right now, the fun of that, self-driving cars, first of all.
Almost
things
exist,
you can do.
Huh? Right. Travel to Mars.
And go to Mars for fun for your next summer vacation. It's like all those possibilities. Instead of thinking of, what I'm afraid of, what I want to avoid. I don't want to be alone. I don't want. I don't want to have a dog that dies before I do. All these things that affect you as you stay alive longer. Because there are going to be people there who do that's what they've been going for from all over the world. This isn't an American thing. This isn't a people who speak English thing. This is a intelligent, aware, conscious people all over the world are going for the best, are going for everything that's possible. And all this information of what's possible is available to everybody. So they're there. We may not know them right now because we're used to our own little boxes that we live in, but they're there. So if I'm 100 or I live to 500 or 5,000 or whatever that ends up being, because I'm going to keep making positive, healthy choices for myself because that's what's fun for me. What else is possible? And who am I going to know? And who am I going to love? How many millions of people will I have loved in real life, people that I know by that time? What if a question in my life is, how many millions of people can I love personally in my lifetime, however long that is?
Well, your why is compelling. Your why is passionate. Why you'd want to be around and be healthy for a while is strong. And, one of the things I recognize is that's not everybody's goal. And the interesting thing is we can, mostly choose that. And we certainly can decide we're going to go out like a flash, a flame, or we can, be around and contribute or participate, engage for a longer time. And I do appreciate that everybody has their own preference with it. And I do want to resonate and connect more with people that have that enthusiasm that I do, to stick around and see, because you're right, we don't even know what the world's going to look like. It's changing so rapidly. And yeah, we're going to be so incredibly surprised by what's coming in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years at least. And we may want to stick around longer healthy.
I do. I want to experience all the great things that are coming up. It's like just being alive today is like, oh my gosh, I really chose an amazing time to be born, to see the arc, this huge arc of progress and things that have gotten created in the universe and things that happen in the relationships between people that never could have happened before. It's just so cool. It's just a very magical time to be alive.
Yeah, no, I think this is a really big, well, Ray Kurzweil talks about this. What does he call it? I looked this up recently, but anyway, it's this place where there's this exponential change where we, before when change is happening steadily, we can maybe predict what the future is going to look like. But now we're at this turning point here where it's so accelerated, we can't possibly figure it out.
Can't see. Right.
And I mean, even what's happening today, I'm not completely connected to what's going on in this moment in terms of, development. And so it's fun once in a while to tap into a futurist because that really grabs my imagination, about what's possible in health and health, the health monitoring aspect, and what's possible with travel, what's possible with deep learning, our access to information and
technology.
The transition into even more profound ways to be entertained.
Mainly that.
Have fun.
That's the top of the list.
Right.
How much more fun can I have?
Right. So I think, it's fun being a health coach and knowing this range of possibilities of things that people can do specific for every area and applying that appropriately. And it's also just fun to understand that it's strongly based on our intention and our belief, and how much we can override the collective belief that it has to be a certain way that it's been. So that would be, in terms of my focus, like the single most important thing you can do is, that's not single, finding your compelling reason to want to stick around,
right,
and then shifting your attitude to believe that it's possible, so that that's motivating to you, so that you keep making better choices. And then tweaking that when it's tough to make those good choices, or you've made bad choices and need to do some tweaking to compensate, then go into the specifics of whether it's nutrition or exercise, supplements, meditation, sleep, all of those places that we get, all this information about, and then fine tune from there.
Mm-hmm.
Because our intention is a big, big part of it.
Yeah, definitely. And we got to wrap it up in a
Yeah.
second, but along the lines of that, one of the things that I think makes a big difference in how easy or hard it is if they say you become the 5 people that you surround yourself, you spend the most time with, you become those kind of people. But really choosing to, if okay, I'm starting to go turning this other way that most of the people I know don't really think like that. Surrounding yourself with people who think the way you do, or even more expansively than you do, so they're pulling you up. Because you can stay in your box, in your safe, comfortable circle of people, and yet if you're all reinforcing, and then we do this, and then we do that, and then we go get sick, and then we die, and it's like you are going down. You're never going up, or you're never standing still. You're either going down or you're going up. So choosing to surround yourself with people, or listen to YouTube videos, or read books, or listen to audio cassettes while you're driving. Cassette tapes, or 8-tracks would be good. Or if you have an album that you can play on the record player. But really choosing to have what's going into your head be expanding you to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, because it's in an infinite ride. Where we all have an infinite selection of things that will just continuously expand us forever. There is no limit anywhere, really. So keeping the people around you, or you go to a party and you're like, that person's on fire, they're alive, they're happy, they're laughing a lot, they're they don't look like they'd be the kind of person I would normally hang out with, but they've got something going on. Go hang out with them. Go talk to them. Spend the whole party with them. Whatever raises your vibration, whatever lifts you to more of where you're aiming for already. That's going to have a big impact on whether this living longer, if you choose to do that, is going to work or not. Or be easy or hard. That you get to choose if it's going to be easy or hard.
Yeah,
you can be constantly trying to resist the people around you and overcome their limited thinking, which is a very difficult ride. Or you can really just kind of follow your bliss, just follow whatever feels light, to where these people make me happy. I'm having more coffee with them. I'm having more coffee with these people. I'm, spending a weekend with these people. It's like they constantly make me feel like happy and fun, and life is worth living.
I love that. Those are great suggestions. Yes, because it has to be reinforced all the time. And so what do you want to be reinforced? What do you want more of? I love your phrase, does this feel light? What feels lighter? Because it's light. It doesn't have to be so freaking serious. And yes, there are serious times, and we all go through them. But it's our vision of the positive future that pulls us through those really difficult, challenging times. It's such a joy to talk to you. You uplift me, darling.
Oh, you uplift me. Thank you so much for doing this with me. This is fun.
Yeah, thank you, Shereen. Have a beautiful rest of the week.
Okay, you too. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.